There's also another question. You had your hand.
So actually, to make the sports analogy again, in well, soccer or football, you have absolutely crazy riots. People get very, very intense about their basically fandom, and that particularly, I assume, from what I've heard in fanfic, some of the fanfic wars, fan wars, shipping wars get pretty crazy. And I wonder if you guys have talked about it all as far as like some of the more extreme.
Oh Jesus! Can I talk about the Ray Wars? I was involved in a fandom called
the Ray Wars.
South. It was a CBS, a co-CBS and BBC, I think, production back in the early '90s. A Canadian Mountie comes down to Chicago to investigate the killing of his father, and he ends up staying attached to the consulate and pairing with a Chicago detective, an Italian Chicago detective. 2 seasons of the show happens, the money runs out, they have to bring production to a halt, and by the time they get the money again, new source of funding, the guy who played the Italian detective can no longer be attached to the show. And so he leaves the show and they hire a Canadian actor named Callum Keith Rennie to take over for him. But since he looks nothing like the American Italian guy, they invent this elaborate in-show concoction where the other guy's going undercover with the mob and this guy's going to pretend to be him. Their names are both Ray. So now you have fans who were in love with the Mountie and the first Ray, and they paired them and they slashed them, you know, it's true love, they're like brothers, they're like married, they're like whatever. And then fans who came in later and were like, oh, we love this new Ray, he's hot, look at he has spiky hair, he's in a rock band, he's so cool, he's a better Ray, a better pair for this Mountie. And people were so hostile, and I don't mean hostile like you're a meanie, I don't like you. They were calling each other's workplaces, outing people at work, and I mean, it was death threats, it was so horrible. Right now, Due South, it's years after the show went off the air, is like the sweetie pie fandom. I mean, everybody's like, we love everybody, all pairings, all love, it's all beautiful. But for about 4 or 5 years, what were called the Ray Wars were bad. They were bad.
I mean, I think that the internet in general, I'm sure that we all have stories about this, right? I mean, but also it's not like the rest of the internet is exactly a chilled out and non-wanky place, right?
Especially with so much media acknowledging, you know, the potential for slash, the way, you know, they'll leave so many things open or insert additional subtext, kind of to give people the options. I mean, so much anime now, like, you know, what's qualified as harem shows have a character with like 8 potential bachelors or bachelorettes, and they just go, have at it, guys, you know, because in anime, the fan culture is so, you know.
And it's not all slash. Harry Potter, the people who wanted Harry to end up with
oh my God, the
or
Pumpkin Pie Wars, oh my God.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it got to a point where there were also death threats over the, actually it was mostly the Ginny Harry people who were the real crazy,
really?
Well, I shouldn't say that.
It was like that.
It was, I mean, and then, well, but then this was also made a lot worse because there was also a person who was not who she was like stirring up shit, and we didn't know for like 6 years that she was not who she said she was. Oh, I went to room parties at cons with her and like hung out with her, and then it turned out that the entire time she had like an army of fucking sock puppets and had been stirring up all of this wank and instigating people.
People hide who they are on the internet?
Shocking! But at the time when you meet someone at a con, you're like, oh, I see you. You are a physical person. You look like your pictures. This is like you're a real person. No, all lies.
One of us can be a sock puppet, right? I'm not actually who I say I am.
Okay. I don't know who put up their hand first.
I think you.
Yeah. So at the beginning, you guys talked about how some of the attitudes were changing because young people were running media now. And my question to you guys is, do you guys see a sea change in the future about attitudes towards fan fiction and legitimizing it and profiting from it? The one example that I would posit is from Lego. So Lego now has like an ability for people who love Lego to build their own Lego sets and submit them to Lego, and if they get enough support, like they actually turn it into a Lego set.
I admit when you first said Lego, it's like, oh, red block, I love you so much. Yellow block.
I mean, I know for a fact that the My Little Pony creators have responded pretty favorably to fans. I don't know.
The extensive amount of fan art.
I feel like there's already been a sea change in terms of like if this were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time when you couldn't pry people out of their fanish closet with a crowbar, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, so you mentioned My Little Pony. Adventure Time is huge, and even Avatar. You know, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not
You know, the creators of Sherlock also acknowledge fan art
Yeah,
and fanfic
they,
a lot.
They did one presentation at one of the Comic-Cons where they took all of like the Aang Zuko fan art and made a slideshow where they narrated like, "Oh Zuko, I love you so much," you know. They owned it. They were like, "All right, this is hilarious."
Well, and 10 years ago, you used to have so many of the studios kind of cracking down on fans and fan works.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well-
it's very rare that you would see something like that happen in this day and age. So it's kind of a huge shift.
I mean, I don't know. I do consulting with people about fan culture. Like I go in and I talk to people, and there is still some of the attitude. Like I mean, I think that it's actually to do with profit, and that you brought. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on this, but because you brought up profit, it was really interesting because actually one of the biggest problems that I run into often is that places were like, how do we get people to put all of their fan fiction on our site so that we get all those hits and those eyeballs and those ads? They're very supportive of fanfic and they want like, you know, Slash to exist and they're really into it and they like it and it's fine, but they want it to be all on their forum and that's just not going to happen. And so there's this interesting thing about who gets the profit and how that works, which is...
I don't mean profit from like portal sites that have all of them. Like, I mean like profit from publishers distributing that the same way that Lego like is probably paying some of the people who submitted the creation. Anyway, so like going beyond recognition of the work of the slideshow at the conference, but actual like distributing it, legitimizing it in some way, putting it in this other category that's still saying that it's art and getting money back.
Well, there are a lot of, with fan writing, there are certainly a lot of authors, fanfic writers, who over the last 10 years have become serious, mainstream, best-selling pro authors. And a number of them are still writing fanfic. You know, so they are using both their names simultaneously, but they are in like the top 10 bestsellers of Amazon. They're getting movie deals, they're getting this, they're getting that. And so, you know, it's not as if people are all hiding the minute they get something legitimate and running away from fandom. They're saying we can coexist in both of these worlds.
We've got 5 minutes left, so we should try and get those last 2 questions.
And I have a clip of Harry Potter reading some erotic fan fiction about himself. If you want to close with that, I don't know. I think it's kind of amazing.
I haven't seen that. It's going to blow my brain
The one where Ray
apart.
finds
So
it,
let's
you know,
try
yelling
and...
for it for
Oh
him.
my god.
You two are the last 2 questions.
Go for it.
So, you want to go? Oh, sorry. There are 2 of you right in front of each other, so there's actually 3. Can you do 3?
Okay.
Okay.
I had a question about other genres of fandom. So you guys have talked a lot about like television and movies and literature. My only introduction to fanfic has been through like Bieber and boy bands.
Oh,
Can you talk
yeah.
about other genres and like, do you guys span other genres? Are there like wars between the music fanfic people and like the movie fanfic people?
I
know nothing
did
about that.
a year and a half in Fandom, which was, yes,
It's like time.
I wrote RPF about Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance. Damn it! Actually, in that fandom, there was a lot of overlay between different fandoms. I mean, a lot of us from that particular fandom group were in media fandom or book fandom. I know that there are other band fandoms, like I think there's a U2 band fandom and some of the classic rock band fandoms that didn't really overlap with us. They kind of existed off on their own.
It's like Led Zeppelin, right? That was an old, old school
and
thing.
it just depends on how you come into it. Like the Fandom thing was huge. It was everybody kind of piling in from media and book fandoms.
And before that was the boy band. There was a big onslaught of boy band fandom.
NSYNC.
Backstreet Boys and
Backstreet Boys.
NSYNC, because a lot of younger fans were tired of writing about middle-aged men. And so they were like, look, there's a bunch of 19-year-olds who will write about them.
Yeah, and in fact, the Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance fandom actually had a very strong backbone of people who came in from NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. So.
I did not know that existed. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, I just learned about fandom right now.
It still actually exists.
Like,
It's
pretty
kind of-
naive.
It's kind of gotten smaller. It had its heyday in about 2007, 2008.
Like, I know, like, people like to sometimes pair like, actual actors. I knew that existed, but I didn't know, like, I don't know. That's interesting.
And in fact, with Fandom, it got so big because the guys in the bands did what they called stage gay, where they would go kiss each other and make out on stage. So everybody was like, oh, wow, they're actually, playing to us. And the guys knew that it existed, and they would read it sometimes. They would go out on the internet and read it, and they were very supportive of it. And basically said, you guys do your thing, we know that it's not about us, and you're not actually writing about us, it's for you.
I mean, I think the idea with a lot of this real person fan fiction is that unless you happen to live next door to a celebrity, what we know of celebrities is a performance. We don't know who they really are, so we're looking at constructed personas anyway, and so when people are writing about them, they're not writing about real
basically
people.
fictional
They're writing about
characters.
They're writing about characters, yeah.
Okay, we are actually at time. There are 2 more questions, so let's try and run through them really quick.
No, I have a quick comment. So about what you said about football fandom, I actually ran a Lightsabers community which had like 10,000 people part of it, and we wrote shits of actual football players. And one of the football players who was really, really famous, the sister actually found the fandom and she had a chat with us and laughed about it. Like she was on Twitter and somebody linked her and she started following all of us and like had a big talk and she told us all the romances that she was really fond of. It's called, so it's a spin-off from Aunt. It's called Aunt_football.
Right.
So,
Oh.
Final one.
So I was wondering, so about sort of regular memes, there's been a lot, especially recently, about regular memes getting this organizational power and political power and whatever. Do you think fan fiction or fan art, fan work in general has that potential or has had that potential before, or is that more of a meme thing?
I think it's a meme thing. I think that the wank communities are more likely to have that kind of input. Things like Fandom Wank, who popularized certain slogans they made fun of. Their thing was always, they're not so popular now, but their thing was always to point and laugh at the foibles of fandom when people took themselves too seriously. And so they would create certain things that worked as memes within fandom. Especially of like artists who were doing totally plagiarized work and pretending it was original. And
Crystal Wank.
Crystal Wank, right. Her head is pasted on, yay, those kind of things. So, but I think regular fandom, probably not.
I think because it's more qualified as like a place for exploring fantasies, and it doesn't really cross over into a public like political stuff in that way.
How is charity drives on LJ where people do Live Long and Merry Fest and things where people are really organizing politically around things?
Like the charity
but
for
that's
like
not like a
Haiti
meme.
and stuff.
No,
Well, Organization for Transformative Works too and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that we are actually out of time.
Okay.
Are we out of time? We're out of time.